The village of Lumina was not like other villages. It didn't huddle against a river for trade, nor did it cling to a mountain pass for defense. Lumina was woven into the very fabric of the Whispering Woods, a place where ancient trees, taller than any cathedral, stretched their boughs to filter the sunlight into shimmering emerald dust. Their roots, gnarled and vast, formed natural pathways and even the foundations for the village homes, their bark alive with luminescent moss that pulsed gently at twilight. It was a village of quiet magic, where the air itself seemed to hum with forgotten songs, and the very stones held memories of ages past. In the heart of this verdant embrace lived Elara, a girl with eyes the color of moss-covered riverstones and hair like spun moonlight. She was not remarkable in stature, nor did she possess any grand magical talents that she knew of, yet Elara was perhaps the most attuned to Lumina's deepest secret, the whisper. Since she was a toddler, barely able to toddle amongst the root paths, she had felt it. A soft, formless hum, a gentle thrumming beneath the silence, like a distant, invisible choir singing just for her. Most of the villagers felt it too, a subtle serenity, a sense of peace that made Lumina a haven. But for Elara, it was more. It was a presence, a knowing. Every morning, Elara would wake to the soft glow of the sun-petal flowers that lined her window, their petals unfurling with a quiet yip-hop. She'd dress in her simple tunic and breeches, her movements as quiet as the forest floor, and slip out of the cottage she shared with her Nana Willow. Her first stop was always the edge of the Elderwoods, the oldest, most sacred part of the Whispering Woods, where the trees grew so close, their canopy was a perpetual twilight. There she would sit on a smooth, mossy stone, closing her eyes and simply listening. The whisper, on most days, was a gentle lullaby. It spoke of the slow growth of the trees, the journey of the tiny star beetles through the undergrowth, the gentle dance of the wind through the leaves. It was the collective consciousness of the woods, a vast, ancient mind that breathed and dreamed alongside Lumina. But recently, the whisper had changed. It was no longer just a lullaby, it was becoming a melody, distinct and urgent. It carried a new note, a shimmer of curiosity, a faint echo of something lost. Elara felt it most acutely in her chest, a warm, tingling sensation that spread through her veins like sunlight. It wasn't a voice in words, but a tapestry of feelings and impressions. She saw fleeting images, a distant shimmering pool, a flower she'd never seen before, its petals unfolding like tiny luminous wings, and most strikingly a faint, almost heartbreaking sense of longing. The whisper seemed to be calling to her, inviting her deeper into the woods than she had ever dared venture, beyond the familiar paths and glades. "Nana Willow," Elara said one evening as her grandmother stirred a pot of nettle soup over the hearth, the scent of herbs filling the cozy cottage. "The whisper. It feels different, stronger, it shows me things." Nana Willow, her face a roadmap of gentle wisdom and laughter lines, paused, her wooden spoon hovering. Her eyes, the same moss green as Elara's, held a knowing depth. "Different, you say, my little dewdrop? How so?" Elara struggled to put the sensation into words. It's telling a story. Not with words, but with a feeling. A feeling of searching, of something waiting. And it shows me a place, Nana. A place I don't know, deep in the Elderwoods. A glade, with a tree that glows, and a pool that shimmers like starlight. Nana Willow sat down beside her, her gaze thoughtful. She reached out, her hand warm and calloused, to gently clasp Elara's. "The whisper has always been more than just the breath of the woods, child. It is the memory of the land, the voice of the ancient spirits that sleep beneath the roots. It is a guide for those who truly listen." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a soft murmur. "My grandmother," she spoke of times when the whisper would awaken, when it would choose someone to listen to its deepest secrets. It would guide them to forgotten places, to truths long buried by the passage of sun and moon. "What kind of truths?" Elara asked, her heart quickening. "Truths of the Lumina heart," Nana Willow replied, her eyes distant, as if seeing through time. "The very source of the wood's magic, the reason our village thrives in such harmony. It is said that the Lumina heart lies hidden, protected, and that only when the whisper calls with a clear voice can its secrets be rediscovered." She paused, a faint smile touching her lips. "It seems, little one, that the whisper has chosen you to hear its clearest call." A thrill, both exhilarating and slightly daunting, ran through Elara. She had always felt special, but this was different. This was a purpose, a quest whispered directly to her soul by the very woods she loved. But what does it want me to do? What am I searching for? Nana Willow patted her hand gently. That, my dear, is for you to discover. The whisper will guide your steps, but remember the Elderwoods are ancient and powerful. They hold wonders but also mysteries that demand respect. Always listen, always observe, and let your heart be your compass. The next morning, Elara felt a renewed sense of purpose. The whisper was no longer just a background hum. It was a vibrant current, tugging at her spirit, pulling her towards the Elderwoods. She packed a small satchel with a few sunpetal biscuits, a flask of spring water, and her grandmother's smooth carved wooden bird, a tiny robin that Nana Willow said would always sing true. Stepping into the Elderwoods was like entering another world. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and ancient bark. The canopy above was a dense, interlocking roof of emerald and jade, only allowing slivers of sunlight to pierce through, dappling the forest floor in shifting patterns of light and shadow. The trees here were truly immense, their trunks wider than Elara's cottage, their branches draped with glowing lumifungus and trailing moss that sparkled with captured dew. The whisper grew stronger, a clear, resonant hum that vibrated in her bones. It wasn't just a sound now, it was a direction. It pulled her left, then right, guiding her through paths she'd never seen before, past groves of silver-leafed ferns that unfurled like sleeping dragon wings, and over streams that whispered secrets as they flowed over smooth, colorful stones. Strange, gentle creatures observed her from the shadows, furred moss squirrels with eyes like polished amber, and iridescent flutterwings that drifted through the air like living jewels. None seemed to fear her, almost as if they too recognized the whisper's guidance. Deeper and deeper she went, the familiar sounds of Lumina fading behind her, replaced by the symphony of the ancient woods, the rustle of unseen creatures, the gentle creak of ancient boughs, and always the insistent, melodious hum of the whisper. The images she had seen in her mind's eye grew clearer, sharper. The shimmering pool, the glowing tree, they felt closer, more real. After what felt like hours, though the timelessness of the Elderwoods made it hard to tell, Elara found herself standing at the edge of a small, perfectly circular clearing. It was unlike any glade she had ever seen. The trees that ringed it were even grander, their bark etched with patterns that seemed to shift and swirl with an inner light. In the center of the clearing stood a single magnificent tree, its leaves a deep shimmering sapphire, and its trunk glowing with a soft, steady light that pulsed in time with the whisper. Its branches reached upwards, forming a natural dome, and beneath its mighty boughs, a pool of water shimmered with an ethereal, starlit glow, even in the dim light of the glade. This was it. The place from the whisper's vision. Elara stepped into the glade, her breath catching in her throat. The air here was vibrant, alive with energy. The sapphire-leafed tree pulsed with a gentle warmth, and the starlit pool seemed to breathe, its surface rippling with tiny, luminous currents. The whisper was deafening here, a beautiful, overwhelming symphony that filled every fiber of her being, a chorus of ancient voices singing a song of longing and hope. As she drew closer to the glowing tree, a soft, almost imperceptible GD ping echoed in her mind, a tiny chime amidst the grand chorus. The whisper seemed to focus, coalescing around a specific spot at the base of the tree. There, nestled amongst its ancient roots, Elara saw something she hadn't expected. It wasn't a grand artifact, or a shining gem. It was a small, smooth stone, no bigger than her palm, perfectly round and utterly colorless, yet it hummed with the same faint energy as the tree itself. It looked like an ordinary river stone, except for one thing. Etched into its surface, so faint she almost missed it, was a single delicate spiral, swirling inwards like a tiny galaxy. It was almost invisible, but as Elara knelt and reached out to touch it, the spiral pulsed with a soft inner light. The whisper intensified, vibrating with an almost frantic joy. It seemed to be telling her, Ithis, this is a beginning. Ho, Otai. Elara's fingers, trembling slightly, brushed against the cool, smooth surface of the riverstone. The moment her skin connected with the faint spiral, a delicate warmth spread through her fingertips, radiating up her arm and settling in her chest. It wasn't a jolt, but a gentle, welcoming embrace, like stepping into a sunbeam after a long, chill morning. The spiral on the stone pulsed again, brighter this time, and then, impossibly, it seemed to detach from the stone's surface, shimmering into the air directly before her. It wasn't a solid projection, but a luminous, ethereal pattern, swirling slowly, expanding and contracting like a miniature, breathing galaxy. As Elara watched, mesmerized, the light within the spiral deepened, shifting through soft blues and greens, then golden amber, before settling on a gentle, pearlescent glow. And as it pulsed, a new sensation bloomed in her mind, clearer than any whisper she had experienced before. It wasn't words, not exactly, but a cascade of images and feelings, like a silent, ancient song. She saw the roots of the great athel tree, burrowing deep, deep into the earth, intertwining with veins of glowing crystal and subterranean rivers. She felt the slow, steady heartbeat of the forest, the rhythmic pulse of life flowing through every leaf, every blade of grass, every hidden creature. She understood in that fleeting moment that the athel tree was not merely a tree, but the very heart of this ancient wood, and that the stone in her hand was a mirror, a conduit, a tiny echo of that vast life-giving energy. The whisper, which had been a distant hum, now resonated directly within her, a symphony of rustling leaves, trickling water, and the soft sigh of wind through branches. It was a voice woven from the very fabric of the forest, and now, for the first time, Elara understood its message with startling clarity. You are connected. You are the listener. The path is open. Follow the root song. Anan, Dandani Shathel. The glowing spiral in the air spun once more, faster this time, and then, like mist dissolving in the morning sun, it faded. The river stone in her hand, however, felt different. It was still smooth and cool, but now it possessed a subtle inner warmth, and the spiral etched upon it seemed to glow with a faint, steady light, no longer just a faint etching, but a living mark. Elara sat there for a long time, her heart thrumming with a mixture of awe and bewilderment. The sun began its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of orange and violet, casting long, dancing shadows through the trees. She knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that her life had irrevocably changed. The forest, which had always been her solace, was now calling her to something more. When the first stars began to prick the darkening sky, Elara finally rose. The stone felt natural in her palm, almost a part of her. The whisper was no longer frantic, but a steady, gentle hum, a quiet guide. It urged her not to linger but to move. Not with haste, but with purpose. She looked back at the magnificent athel tree, its branches now silhouetted against the twilight, its leaves whispering secrets to the cooling air. She felt a profound gratitude, a promise forming in her heart to protect this sacred place and the magic it held. Then, turning, she began to walk. The whisper nudged her to the north, away from the familiar paths that led back to the edge of the forest and her village. It guided her through thicker undergrowth, past trees she didn't recognize, their trunks gnarled and ancient, their branches draped with moss like wise old beards. The light from the stone in her hand was faint, but it cast a soft, pearlescent glow that seemed to illuminate just enough of the path ahead, making the forest less daunting than it might have been in the deepening gloom. As she walked, Elara noticed subtle shifts in the forest around her. The air grew sweeter, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine and damp earth. Luminescent fungi, which she'd only ever seen in small patches before, now dotted the forest floor like scattered jewels, casting a soft ethereal glow that mingled with the stone's light. The sounds of the forest changed too. The usual rustles and chirps of nocturnal creatures were still there, but beneath them, a deeper, more resonant melody began to emerge, a low, harmonic hum that seemed to emanate from the very ground beneath her feet. Root song, she realized, recalling the whisper's message. It was the silent, vibrational language of the earth, the ancient pulse of life. She walked for what felt like hours, her legs growing tired, but her spirit alight with wonder. The forest was revealing new facets of itself with every step. She passed a stream whose waters shimmered with faint silver light, and where the stones on its bed glowed faintly from within. She saw flowers, unlike any she knew, unfurling delicate, translucent petals that pulsed with soft light. Her initial apprehension had long since dissolved, replaced by a boundless curiosity, a fervent desire to see what other marvels this awakened forest held. The whisper, ever present, grew a little stronger, a little more insistent. It pointed her towards a particularly dense thicket of ivy-covered trees. Their branches were so interwoven they formed a living wall, seemingly impenetrable. But as Elara approached, the light from her stone brightened, and a narrow opening, previously invisible, shimmered into existence. It wasn't a gap, but more like a parting of the leaves, a curtain of foliage drawing back for her. Hesitantly, Elara stepped through. She found herself in a glade unlike any she had ever imagined. It was a circular clearing, surrounded by trees so ancient their trunks were wider than her small cottage, their canopy so vast they seemed to hold up the night sky. But it wasn't the size of the trees that captured her breath, it was the light. The entire glade was suffused with a soft, warm, golden glow. It wasn't moonlight, nor starlight, but an inner radiance emanating from everything. The moss on the ground glowed like a velvet carpet, woven with threads of sunbeams. The leaves on the trees shimmered with an inner light, creating a breathtaking canopy of living lanterns. A waterfall cascaded down a mossy rock face on one side of the glade, its waters not clear, but a swirling river of liquid starlight, sparkling and chiming as it fell into a serene pool below. In the center of this luminous glade stood another tree. It was not as massive as the ethel tree, nor as ancient-looking, but it possessed an undeniable grace. Its bark was a smooth, silvery white, and its leaves were a vibrant, shimmering emerald. From its branches hung delicate, bell-shaped flowers that pulsed with gentle light, emitting a soft musical chime on the breeze. It was the most beautiful thing Elara had ever seen. And at the base of this tree, nestled among its exposed roots, was a dwelling. It wasn't built of wood or stone, but seemed to have grown from the tree itself. Its walls were woven from thick, living vines, its roof thatched with luminous, broad leaves. A single, arched doorway, draped with strands of glowing beads, invited her closer. The whisper, now a joyous chorus, urged her forward. As Elara approached the dwelling, the glowing beads at the entrance parted, revealing a warm, inviting interior. And then, a figure emerged. She was old, ancient even, but her movements were fluid and graceful, like the gentle sway of a willow in the breeze. Her skin was the color of rich, dark earth, crisscrossed with lines like the patterns on a tree's bark, but her eyes, deep-set and luminous, sparkled with a youthful vitality. Her hair, a cascade of silvery white, was intricately woven with strands of shimmering moss and tiny bell-shaped flowers, identical to those on the tree. She wore a simple gown made of woven leaves and soft, shimmering fibers, and in her hand, she held a staff that seemed to be a polished branch, tipped with a glowing crystal that pulsed in rhythm with the glade's gentle light. A smile, ancient and kind, spread across her face. "Welcome, little listener," she said, her voice a soft, melodious hum, like the gentle rustle of leaves and the murmur of the waterfall. "I have been awaiting you." Elara, momentarily speechless, clutched the river stone tighter. You were expecting me," she finally managed, her voice a barely audible whisper. The old woman chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling in a gentle wind. "Indeed, the root song has sung your coming for many cycles, and the ethel tree, well, it has been quite insistent." She gestured to the river stone in Elara's hand. "That is the heartstone. It has chosen its keeper, as it always does, in times of great change." Elara looked down at the glowing stone, then back at the old woman. "But what is it? What does it mean?" "Come, child," the woman said, extending a hand that felt surprisingly firm and warm. "The night deepens, and there is much to tell. My name is Lyra. I am one of the elder keepers of the Whispering Woods." Elara, feeling an immediate sense of trust and peace in Lyra's presence, took her hand and allowed herself to be led into the magical dwelling. Inside, the space was cozy and warm, lit by the same gentle golden glow that permeated the glade. The walls pulsed softly, and shelves carved into the living wood held jars of glowing herbs, intricate carvings of forest creatures, and scrolls made of what looked like dried, luminous leaves. A small bubbling spring emerged from the floor in one corner, its waters creating a gentle, soothing melody. In the center, a comfortable-looking seat, woven from thick vines and cushioned with moss, beckoned. "Sit, Elara," Lyra invited, settling herself on a similar seat opposite. You must be weary from your journey. Elara sat, feeling the soft yielding moss beneath her. The warmth from the dwelling's walls enveloped her, chasing away any lingering chill from the night air. The heartstone you carry, Lyra began, her gaze fixed on the stone in Elara's hand, which pulsed in response to her words, is not merely a stone. It is a seed, a fragment of the apple tree's own essence, imbued with its magic and its memories. It is a key, a guide, and a protector. A seed? Elara murmured, tracing the spiral with her thumb. Yes, a seed of magic, of ancient knowledge. When the Ethel tree first awakened to its full power, long, long ago, it shed these heartstones, each one destined to find a listener, a child of the forest whose heart echoes its own song. Lyra paused, her eyes twinkling. You, Elara, are such a listener. You hear the whispers of the woods, the silent language of growing things, the murmur of the wind through the leaves. I always thought it was just my imagination, Elara confessed, a blush rising on her cheeks. Or that I was a little strange. Lyra laughed softly. There is nothing strange about being attuned to the magic of the world, little one. It is a gift, a rare and precious one. Most people with their minds full of busy thoughts have forgotten how to listen. But you simply gare a listener. And the whisper? Elara asked, remembering the constant guiding presence. The whisper is the collective voice of the forest, Lyra explained. The consciousness of all living things within the apple tree's domain. It is the wisdom of the roots, the light of the leaves, the flow of the rivers, the breath of the wind. It speaks through the heartstone, guiding its chosen. Why now? Elara wondered aloud. Why has it chosen me now? Lyra's smile faded slightly, replaced by a look of gentle concern. The world is changing, Elara. The balance shifts. The veil between our world and the unseen realms grows thin. Forces stir that seek to dim the light, to silence the root song. The apple tree feels this, and it has called for its listeners to awaken. You are not the first, and you will not be the last. Elara felt a prickle of unease. Forces? What forces? Shadows, child. Old forgotten shadows that remember a time before the apple tree brought balance. They seek to reclaim what they believe is theirs, to twist the magic of the forest for their own purposes. They fear the light, and they fear the root song. Lyra's gaze met Elara's, steady and unwavering. But fear not. The apple tree is mighty, and the heartstone is a powerful ward. As long as the root song flows, hope remains. So, what am I supposed to do? Elara asked, feeling the weight of this new understanding. The wonder was still there, but now it was tinged with a sense of responsibility. For now, you are to learn, Lyra replied, her voice softening once more. To understand the magic that flows through you, through the stone and through the forest, to strengthen your connection to the root song. This glade, the glade of whispering bells, is a sanctuary, a place of learning for those chosen by the heartstone. You will stay with me for a time, and I will teach you what I know. Elara looked around the cozy, glowing dwelling, then back at Lyra's kind face. A sense of peace settled over her. This was not a burden, she realized, but an honor. A new chapter, filled with magic and purpose, had truly begun. Thank you, Lyra, Elara said, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. I will learn. I will listen. Lyra smiled, a warmth radiating from her that was as comforting as the glade's gentle glow. That is all the apple tree asks of you, little listener. Now for your first lesson, close your eyes, hold the heartstone to your chest, and listen, truly listen, to the root song that sings within this glade. Elara followed Lyra's instruction. She pressed the warm, glowing river stone against her heart, closed her eyes, and took a deep, calming breath. At first, she heard only the gentle hum of the glade, the soft chimes of the bellflowers, the murmur of the waterfall. But as she focused, letting her mind clear, the sounds began to deepen, to intertwine. She felt the gentle pulse of the moss beneath her, the slow, deliberate breathing of the ancient trees outside, the subtle, crystalline energy flowing through the spring. It was as if the glade itself was a living, breathing being, and she was being welcomed into its very essence. The root song here was not just a distant hum, but a vibrant, intricate symphony, a tapestry of life woven from countless tiny melodies. She felt a profound connection, not just to the glade but to the entire forest, and even beyond, to the vast unseen network of magic that sustained the world. Days turned into weeks in the glade of whispering bells. Elara learned from Lyra, not through formal lessons, but through observation, practice, and the quiet wisdom of the elder keeper. Lyra taught her to identify the glowing herbs of the glade and their various properties, how to coax light from the luminous fungi, and how to weave small protective charms from shimmering moss and fallen leaves. Most importantly, Lyra guided Elara in deepening her connection to the heartstone and the root song. Elara learned to meditate by the starlight waterfall, letting the rhythmic chime of the water and the glade's soft glow calm her mind and open her senses. The heartstone in her hand became an extension of herself, its gentle warmth a constant reminder of the magic flowing within her. She discovered that when she held the heartstone and focused, she could feel the subtle currents of the forest's magic. She could sense where a plant needed water, or where a small animal was in distress. The whisper, once a soft, generalized hum, now offered clearer, more specific guidance, sometimes in fleeting images, sometimes in a strong feeling of knowing. Lyra explained that the heartstone was helping her to translate the forest's language, to attune her own spirit to its frequency. One evening, as the twin moons, Lumina and Nocturne, cast their silver and shadow-dappled light through the glade, Lyra led Elara to a grove of ancient, gnarled trees at the edge of the sanctuary. Their branches were so thick with glowing moss that they seemed to hold pockets of starlight. "Elara," Lyra said, her voice unusually solemn. "The time for passive listening is drawing to a close. Your connection to the heartstone has deepened, and the root song now sings through you with clarity. You are ready for the next step." Elara felt a thrill of anticipation, mixed with a familiar flutter of apprehension. "What is it, Lyra?" Lyra pointed to a spot where the moss was particularly thick and luminous, covering what looked like a weathered ancient stone slab. "The heartstone is not merely a key to the forest's magic, Elara. It is also a memory keeper. It holds echoes of the past, and sometimes it can show glimpses of the future. But to access these deeper memories, you must truly become one with its song." She guided Elara to sit before the stone slab, which, upon closer inspection, seemed to have faint, swirling patterns etched into its surface, similar to the spiral on her heartstone, but far more intricate and expansive. "Place the heartstone upon the slab," Lyra instructed. "Then, close your eyes. Allow the root song to flow through you and through the stone. Do not seek to control, only to observe. Let the memories come." Elara took a deep breath, her heart thrumming with nervous excitement. She placed the river stone carefully on the center of the slab. Dow! As soon as it touched the ancient surface, a wave of warmth spread from it, encompassing the entire slab, which began to glow with a soft inner light. The intricate patterns on its surface pulsed, as if coming alive. Elara closed her eyes, holding her hands open, palms down, just above the glowing stone. She focused on the root song, letting it fill her senses. The hum of the glade, the chimes of the bells, the murmur of the waterfall, all merged into a single resonant frequency that vibrated deep within her. The heartstone, now connected to the larger slab, pulsed in sync with her own heartbeat. A swirling vortex of colors bloomed behind her eyelids, deep emeralds, sapphire blues, shimmering golds, and pearlescent whites. It was like looking into a kaleidoscope of pure magic. The whisper intensified, no longer just a hum, but a chorus, a multitude of ancient voices singing in harmony, yet without words. Then, the images began to form. She saw a flash of light, a cataclysm of creation, and the birth of the athel tree, a tiny sapling pushing through barren earth, bathed in the light of a nascent sun. She saw it grow, impossibly fast, reaching for the sky, its roots delving deep, drawing magic from the earth and the heavens. She saw ancient ethereal beings, shimmering like moonlight, tending to the young tree, singing it into existence. They were the first keepers, Lyra's ancestors, woven from starlight and forest mist. Then, the vision shifted. The sky darkened. A creeping shadow, cold and hungry, began to spread across the land, leeching the color and life from everything it touched. The athel tree, though still mighty, seemed to dim, its leaves losing their vibrant glow. The ethereal keepers fought back, wielding staffs of light, singing their ancient songs, but the shadow was relentless, vast, and unknowable. Elara felt a pang of fear, a chill that seeped into her bones. This was the threat Lyra had spoken of, the encroaching darkness. But then, another shift. The Ethel tree, in an act of profound will, pulsed with an inner light so brilliant, it pushed back the encroaching gloom. And from its heart, like droplets of pure light, emerged the heartstones, scattering across the forest, each one a beacon of hope. She saw glimpses of other listeners, long ago, holding the stones, guided by the whisper, fighting back the shadows in their own ways, rekindling pockets of light and life. The vision faded, not abruptly, but gently, like a dream dissipating upon waking. Elara opened her eyes, feeling a profound sense of exhaustion, but also a renewed clarity. The stone slab was still glowing, and the heartstone in its center pulsed steadily. The air around her shimmered with residual magic. Lyra was watching her, her expression unreadable. "What did you see, little listener?" she asked softly. Elara recounted her vision, the birth of the tree, the ancient keepers, the encroaching shadow, and the creation of the heartstones. Lyra nodded slowly. "You have seen the truth of our history, Elara. The great gloom, as we call the encroaching shadow, is an ancient foe. It seeks to consume all light, all life, all magic. And the heartstones were the Ethel tree's answer, its way of spreading its light, empowering those who would stand against the darkness. But what is it? What is the great gloom?" Elara pressed, still feeling the chill of the vision. "It is not a being, not truly," Lyra explained. "It is a corruption, a hunger, born from imbalance and discord in the world. It thrives on fear, on despair, on silence. It cannot truly be destroyed, only pushed back, contained, its influence lessened by the power of the root song and the light of those who carry the heartstones." "So, my task is to fight it?" Elara asked, her voice small. "Your task, Elara, is to awaken the magic within you, to strengthen the root song's presence, and to rekindle the light where it has dimmed," Lyra corrected gently. "To remind the world how to listen, the heartstone will guide you. It will show you where the light is weakest, where the root song struggles to be heard. It will lead you to places that need your touch, your voice, your light." Lyra reached out and placed a hand on Elara's shoulder. "This is a journey, not a battle, little listener. A journey of hope, of renewal, of rediscovery. You are not alone. Other listeners, chosen by other heartstones, are out there, perhaps even now, awakening to their own paths." Elara looked down at the heartstone, now glowing with a steady, resolute light. The spiral on its surface seemed to deepen, to draw her in. The whisper resonated within her, a clear, unmistakable call. It was time. Time to leave the sanctuary of the glade of whispering bells, time to step out into the wider, changing world. "Where do I go first?" Elara asked, her voice steady, her fear replaced by a quiet determination. Lyra smiled, a knowing glint in her ancient eyes. "The heartstone already knows. Listen to its song. It will guide you to a place where the root song is faltering, where a spark of light needs rekindling. Go, Elara, go and let the magic lead the way." As the sun rose, painting the glade in shades of gold and rose, Elara stood at the edge of the glade of whispering bells. She carried a small satchel Lyra had given her, filled with provisions, a warm cloak, and a small vial of shimmering liquid made from concentrated starlight, a gift from Lyra for moments when the path seemed darkest. The heartstone, nestled in her palm, pulsed with a gentle, insistent warmth, guiding her towards the east, towards the rising sun. She embraced Lyra one last time, feeling the warmth of the Elder Keeper's ancient wisdom. "Thank you, Lyra," she whispered, "for everything." "Go with the root song, Elara," Lyra replied, her voice soft as the morning breeze. "May your light shine brightly." With a final glance at the luminous glade, Elara stepped out into the wider forest, leaving the sanctuary behind. The trees still seemed to part for her, the path ahead subtly illuminated by the heartstone's pearlescent glow. The whisper was a strong, clear presence now, singing a melody of direction and purpose. It was a call to adventure, a beckoning towards the unknown, a promise of magic yet to be discovered. She walked for a day, the heartstone humming gently in her hand, guiding her through ancient forests and across sun-dappled meadows. The whisper urged her onward, its message growing more focused. It was leading her towards a place of quiet sorrow, a place where the root song was muted, almost silent. As the second evening approached, the landscape began to change. The trees grew sparser, their leaves a duller green, less vibrant than those of the whispering woods. The air felt heavier, quieter, devoid of the usual chirps and rustles of forest life. The luminescence of the fungi and moss faded, becoming almost imperceptible. The heartstone in Elara's hand grew warmer, its glow intensifying, as if trying to push back the encroaching stillness. She found herself at the edge of a great, sprawling marsh. The air here was thick with a strange melancholic mist that clung to the skeletal branches of stunted trees. The ground was soft and spongy, and the water, stagnant and dark, reflected the gray, overcast sky. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. The silence was profound, broken only by the squelch of her boots in the damp earth. This was a place where the root song had indeed faltered. The whisper, though still present, felt strained here, like a beautiful melody trying to pierce through a thick shroud. It urged her deeper into the marsh, pointing towards a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer in the distance, partially obscured by the mist. Elara took a deep breath, clutching the heartstone. The vision of the great gloom flashed in her mind, and she felt a surge of resolve. This was her first true test, her first opportunity to rekindle the light. With a determined step, she ventured into the silent, misty marsh, following the faint shimmer, guided by the unwavering warmth of the heartstone and the struggling but persistent song of the whisper. The path ahead was uncertain, but her purpose was clear. The air grew heavy and damp, pressing in on Elara like a shroud. Each step she took sank slightly into the soft, mossy earth, releasing a faint, earthy scent, mixed with something sharp and metallic, like old iron left in the rain. The mist, initially a gentle veil, thickened with every stride, swirling around her ankles and rising to obscure the gnarled, skeletal trees that stood like silent sentinels on either side of the barely discernible path. Their branches, devoid of leaves, clawed at the gray sky, disappearing into the higher reaches of the fog. The faint shimmer, her guide, was like a distant firefly, appearing and disappearing between the mist-laden reeds and clumps of dark, spongy fungi. It pulsed with a soft internal luminescence, a delicate counterpoint to the oppressive grayness. The whisper, usually a clear bell-like melody, now struggled, its notes muffled and distorted, like trying to sing underwater. It was a tune of quiet desperation, a valiant attempt to pierce the encroaching silence. Elara clutched the heartstone tighter, its warmth a steady, comforting thrum against her palm, echoing the fading song. Her boots squelched with an unnerving regularity, and the marsh seemed to stretch endlessly before her. The path, if it could be called that, was a narrow winding ribbon of slightly firmer ground, barely wide enough for one. To either side, dark, murky pools lay hidden beneath a film of green algae, their depths unknown, reflecting nothing but the gray, shrouded sky. Elara had to focus intensely, placing each foot with care, her eyes scanning for the next appearance of the elusive shimmer. The deeper she went, the colder it became, a chill that seemed to seep into her bones, independent of the external temperature. It was the cold of absence, of life withdrawn. A sudden, sharp gust of wind, smelling faintly of ozone and decay, tore through the marsh. It wasn't a natural wind, it felt purposeful, a whisper of the gloom itself. The mist swirled violently, coiling and uncoiling like a living thing, briefly revealing grotesque, twisted roots that snaked across her path, as thick as a man's arm. Elara stumbled, catching herself just before she tripped over one particularly gnarled root that seemed to writhe in the mist. The whisper's song faltered completely, replaced by a strained, almost imperceptible hum. A cold dread, a tendril of the glue's own despair, tried to coil around her heart. No, she thought, pressing the heartstone against her chest. Its warmth intensified, pushing back against the encroaching chill. This is why I'm here. Shiny. She took a deep, shaky breath, tasting the damp, earthy air. The vision of the radiant world, the one she fought for, flashed in her mind. The whisper, as if sensing her resolve, rallied its strength, and a single clear note, pure and resonant, pierced the oppressive silence. It was a note of defiance, a spark in the gathering darkness. The shimmer ahead brightened slightly, as if encouraged. For what felt like hours, Elara pressed on. The marsh offered no solace, no beauty, only a relentless, gray uniformity. Her legs ached, her cloak grew heavy with moisture, and her senses were dulled by the pervasive mist. Yet, the Heartstone never wavered in its warmth, and the whisper, though still struggling, persisted. She began to notice subtle shifts in the landscape. The dark pools became more numerous, and some seemed to pulse with a faint, sickly green luminescence from their depths. The gnarled trees grew even more skeletal, their branches studded with dark, leathery growths that looked like petrified fungi. Then, the shimmer halted. It hovered above a particularly wide, dark pool, its light pulsating with an unusual urgency. The whisper's song, which had been a quiet melody, now became a frantic, rapid succession of high-pitched notes, almost like an alarm. Elara approached cautiously, her hand instinctively going to the small, intricately carved wooden charm hanging from her neck, a gift from her mentor, said to ward off illusions. The pool was vast, its surface like polished obsidian, reflecting nothing. But beneath that dark mirror something stirred. A faint, swirling pattern of deeper black began to form, like ink spreading through water. A low, mournful sound, a drawn-out sigh that seemed to carry the weight of ages of sorrow, rose from the depths. It was not a sound of aggression, but of profound, aching sadness. From the swirling darkness, a shape began to emerge. It was spectral, shimmering with the same sickly green light as the deeper pools, but also with an ethereal, translucent quality. It resolved into the form of a majestic stag, its antlers vast and spreading, made of what looked like moonlight and shadow. But this was no ordinary stag. Its eyes were hollow, pools of despair, and its shimmering form seemed to constantly weep trails of dark, inky mist. It moved with a slow, mournful grace, circling the center of the pool, its head bowed low, as if carrying an unbearable burden. The whisper pulsed with urgency, its song now a lament, echoing the stag's sorrow. Elara felt a wave of profound empathy wash over her, a shared ache that threatened to overwhelm her. This was not a creature of malice, but one consumed by the gloom's despair. It was a lost spirit, a fragment of the marsh's ancient vitality, twisted and muted by the encroaching darkness. "Hello?" Elara whispered, her voice barely audible in the heavy air. The stag paused its circling, its head slowly lifting. Its hollow eyes, devoid of light, seemed to fix on her, though there was no recognition in their depths, only an infinite, sorrowful emptiness. The Heartstone in her hand grew intensely warm, almost hot, and a faint golden light began to emanate from its surface, pushing back the surrounding mist. The stag let out another mournful sigh, a sound that resonated deep within Elara's soul, threatening to pull her into its abyss of grief. She felt tears welling in her eyes, an instinctual response to such profound suffering. But the warmth of the Heartstone and the struggling song of the whisper reminded her of her purpose. She couldn't let the gloom's despair consume her, or this beautiful lost creature. "You are hurt," Elara said, her voice stronger this time, though still soft. "Lost. The gloom has touched you deeply." As she spoke, the golden light from the Heartstone intensified, casting a small shimmering circle around her. The mist recoiled slightly from its glow. The whisper, taking courage from the Heartstone's light, found a new strength, its song weaving a melody of comfort and hope, a lullaby against the sorrow. The spectral stag shivered, its ethereal form rippling like water. It took a hesitant step towards her, then another, its hooves making no sound on the dark water. As it drew closer, Elara could see faint, swirling patterns of dark energy within its shimmering body, like shadows caught in a current. These were the tendrils of the gloom, binding it, feeding on its despair. Elara knew she couldn't fight this creature. It wasn't an enemy, but a victim. She had to offer solace, to rekindle a spark of its former self. She slowly extended her hand, the Heartstone glowing brightly in her palm. The golden light reached out, a gentle beam towards the weeping stag. "It's all right," she murmured, her voice filled with compassion. "You don't have to carry this sorrow alone." As the light touched the stag's ethereal form, a low, guttural moan escaped it, not of pain but of a deep, ancient ache. The dark patterns within it pulsed wildly, resisting the warmth. The whisper's song grew complex, a tapestry of soothing notes and urgent warnings. It seemed to be guiding her, telling her Wavyu to connect. Elara closed her eyes for a moment, focusing all her intent. She pictured the vision of the world bathed in light, the joy, the life, the vibrant energy that the heartstone represented. She poured that feeling, that purest essence of hope, into the stone. When she opened her eyes, the heartstone was blazing, a small sun in her palm. She gently, cautiously, reached out and placed her hand against the spectral flank of the stag. A shock, not of pain but of profound cold, surged through her arm. The gloom recoiled from the heartstone's touch, manifesting as a sudden intense chill that tried to freeze her very spirit. The stag bucked, a silent, ethereal movement, and its sorrowful moan deepened, becoming almost a shriek of anguish as the dark energies within it struggled against the light. Elara gritted her teeth, holding fast. She could feel the gloom's tendrils trying to pull her into the stag's despair, showing her visions of forgotten beauty and inevitable decay, whispering doubts into her mind. It's too much. You are too small. This world is lost. When you are, can you? But Elara refused to yield. She held on to the heartstone, her connection to it unwavering. The whisper's song became a fierce, protective melody, an unwavering shield against the glue's insidious whispers. She focused on the pure, untainted light within the heartstone, on the enduring spirit that fought against the darkness. She pushed against the cold, pouring her own warmth, her own resolve, her own hope arc into the stag. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the dark patterns within the stag began to recede. The sickly green light emanating from it faded, replaced by a softer, more silvery sheen. The mournful cries lessened, transforming into soft, almost whimpering sounds. The stag's hollow eyes, though still dark, seemed to gain a faint internal glow, like distant stars. It leaned into her touch, its spectral head bowing lower, not in sorrow now, but in a profound sense of relief. The cold receded, replaced by a gentle warmth, and the heavy air around them seemed to lighten. The mist, which had been thick and suffocating, thinned, revealing glimpses of the marsh beyond, still gray, but less oppressive. As the last tendrils of the gloom were expelled, the stag's form solidified slightly. Its antlers, once made of shadow, now gleamed with the pure, unadulterated light of the moon. Its eyes, though still deep, held a spark of intelligence, a glimmer of peace. It was no longer weeping inky mist, but radiating a soft, silver light. It was still spectral, still ethereal, but now it was a spirit of the marsh, not a prisoner of the gloom. The stag nudged her hand gently with its nose, a silent gesture of gratitude. Then, with a graceful, almost weightless bound, it turned and leaped across the dark pool, its silver form shimmering as it dissolved into the thinning mist on the far side. A final, clear, almost joyful chime echoed across the water, and Elara knew it was the stag, finally free, singing its own song once more. Elara zagged, her arm trembling, the heartstone still warm in her hand. The encounter had drained her, but a profound sense of accomplishment filled her. She had not only survived, but she had brought a fragment of light back to a lost soul. The whisper's song, no longer struggling, swelled into a triumphant chorus, a melody of pure joy and renewed strength. The faint shimmer, which had been anxiously waiting, now pulsed with renewed vigor, beckoning her onward. The marsh, though still misty and silent, felt different now. The oppressive chill had receded, and the air, while still damp, no longer carried the scent of decay. The path ahead seemed clearer, the treacherous roots less menacing. Encouraged, Elara continued her journey, following the invigorated shimmer. The whisper's song guided her, a steadfast companion. She walked for another long stretch, the mist gradually thinning, revealing more of the twisted landscape. The ground began to rise imperceptibly, and the trees, though still gnarled, grew taller and more ancient. Their bark was scarred with deep fissures, and some bore the strange petrified fungi that pulsed with a faint sickly light, remnants of the gloom's touch. The shimmer led her towards a cluster of these ancient trees, whose branches intertwined to form a dense, shadowy canopy. Beneath them, the air grew still and heavy again, But this time, it was a silence born of age, not despair. The ground became firmer, transitioning from marshy earth to a carpet of dark velvety moss that seemed to absorb all sound. Here, the gloom's influence was more subtle, but perhaps more deeply rooted. It wasn't the open wound she had healed in the stag, but an ancient festering scar. The trees themselves seemed to weep a dark viscous sap that formed small glistening puddles at their base. The whisper's song grew cautious, a gentle, almost reverent hum, as if aware of a powerful slumbering presence. The shimmer led her to the center of the grove, where the trees formed a natural enclosed chamber. In the very heart of this chamber stood a single colossal tree, its trunk wider than any she had ever seen, its branches reaching towards the heavens like grasping fingers. Its bark was not merely scarred, but seemed to be made of solidified shadow, absorbing all light. At its base, a shallow pool of the dark, viscous sap pulsed with a faint malevolent glow. This was no ordinary tree. This was a place where the gloom had taken deep root, a heart of shadow in the marsh. The shimmer, her unwavering guide, did not enter the pool. Instead, it hovered above it, pulsating urgently, pointing towards a barely visible crevice in the colossal tree's trunk. The whisper's song became a low, resonant drone, a sound that vibrated through the very ground beneath her feet. It was a warning, but also an invitation. Elara approached the colossal tree, her heart thrumming. The air around it was thick, heavy with an ancient, oppressive power. She could feel the cold radiating from the tree, a bone-deep chill that seemed to sap her strength. The sap in the pool at its base was not just dark. It seemed to shimmer with tiny swirling motes of pure shadow, like countless trapped stars consumed by an infinite night. As she peered into the crevice, a gust of icy wind, smelling of damp earth and something indefinable, ancient and dark, blew out from its depths. It was like the breath of something immensely old and sorrowful. The heartstone in her hand pulsed erratically, its warmth fluctuating, struggling against the profound cold emanating from the tree. The whisper's song, though still present, was strained, a desperate plea for caution. The crevice was narrow, barely wide enough for her to squeeze through, and its darkness seemed absolute, deeper than any night. It promised not just physical challenge, but a journey into the very heart of the gloom's ancient influence. This was not a lost spirit, but a nexus, a place where the darkness had woven itself into the very fabric of the world. Elara took another deep breath, the scent of the dark sap filling her nostrils. She remembered the vision of the great gloom, the encroaching shadows. This colossal tree, this place of ancient darkness, felt like a vital artery of that spreading blight. Her purpose, clearer than ever, solidified within her. She had faced the despair of a lost spirit and brought it peace. Now, she had to confront the source of that despair. With a final resolute look at the shimmering glow that hovered above the dark pool, Elara squeezed through the narrow crevice in the colossal tree, the heartstone glowing like a beacon in her outstretched hand, its light swallowed almost immediately by the profound ancient darkness within. The whisper's song, though faint, followed her into the gloom, a tiny, defiant spark of sound in the overwhelming silence. The path ahead was unknown, but her resolve was unshakable. The true test had only just begun. The darkness inside the colossal tree was a living, breathing entity, far deeper and more ancient than any shadow Elara had ever known. It pressed in on her, a physical weight that stole the air from her lungs and the warmth from her skin. The heartstone, clutched tight in her hand, pulsed with a gentle, persistent light, but even its vibrant glow seemed muted, struggling to assert itself against the profound gloom. The crevice she had entered was not a simple tunnel, but a winding organic passage formed by roots thicker than an ancient oak, gnarled and interwoven like forgotten history. Their surfaces were slick with a strange cool moisture, and the air hummed with an almost imperceptible vibration, a deep, resonant thrum that spoke of the tree's immense, suffering heart. The whisper, a tiny silver thread of song, was her only other companion. It danced around her, sometimes a distant echo, sometimes a clear, bright chime beside her ear, guiding her through the twisting labyrinth. When the path seemed to split into a dozen identical dark tunnels, the whisper would grow louder in one direction, a celestial compass. When the ground grew uneven, threatening to trip her in the pitch black, it would flutter ahead, a shimmering, almost visible presence that warned her of pitfalls. She walked for what felt like an eternity, her legs aching, her mind battling the insidious whispers of doubt that the oppressive darkness sent her way. You are too small. You are not strong enough. The Heartstone is a mere flicker against this ocean of sorrow. Elara held fast, her gaze fixed on the Heartstone's unwavering light. She remembered the fading colors of the whispering woods, the silent creatures, the desperate plea in the eyes of the elder, and her resolve hardened. This was not just for her, it was for everything. Suddenly, the passage opened into a vast, cavernous space. The Heartstone's light, though still dim in the immensity, revealed a breathtaking, if unsettling, sight. She stood on a natural ledge, overlooking a chasm so deep, its bottom was lost to sight. Strange bioluminescent fungi clung to the walls, casting a sickly green glow that did little to dispel the gloom, but instead highlighted the grotesque beauty of the ancient roots that descended into the abyss like petrified waterfalls. And there, at the very center of the cavern, suspended by a network of colossal roots, was the tree's heart. It was not a physical organ, but a swirling vortex of deep, bruised violet energy, pulsing erratically, like a dying star. From its agitated core, tendrils of darkness snaked outwards, touching the roots, infecting the very stone, and radiating the chilling cold that permeated the entire space. This was the source of the blight, the deep wound within the ancient protector. As Elara stepped closer to the edge, a new sound began to emanate from the vortex, a low, mournful drone, a song of profound sadness that resonated deep within her bones. It was the reverse of the whisper's joyous melody, a lament so ancient and sorrowful that tears welled in her eyes. The Heartstone in her hand throbbed in response, its light flickering as if struggling against the overwhelming despair. The whisper, which had been a constant comfort, suddenly darted forward, its silver light growing brighter, almost like a tiny star. It zipped towards the swirling violet core, a defiant spark against the gloom. As it drew near, the mournful drone intensified, and a shadowy form began to coalesce from the vortex itself. It wasn't a creature of flesh and blood, but a being woven from the very darkness and sorrow of the tree's heart, a spectral guardian, ancient and sorrowful, its eyes like twin pools of starlight reflecting infinite pain. "Who dares disturb the slumber of the Sorrow Keeper?" a voice echoed, not from the shadowy form's mouth, but from the air itself, resonating with the tree's deep lament. "Return to the light, little one. There is no healing here, only a slow, inevitable fading." Elara's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. "I am Elara, and I carry the Heartstone. I come to heal the tree, not to disturb its rest." The Sorrow Keeper's form rippled, like smoke in a breeze. "Heal? Foolish child, this heart is beyond mending. It has witnessed millennia of joy and sorrow, but the sorrow has become too great. The world outside forgets the balance, takes without giving, and the tree suffers in silence. I am its sorrow, given form, its shield against further pain. To heal it is to expose it again, to invite more wounds." Elara understood then. The darkness wasn't evil, but a manifestation of the tree's profound grief and exhaustion, a protective shell it had grown around itself to prevent further suffering. The Sorrow Keeper was not a villain, but a guardian born of pain. "But if the tree sleeps forever in sorrow," Elara pleaded, her voice trembling but firm, "the whispering woods will fade entirely. The balance will break. Life outside depends on the tree's light, just as the tree depends on the world's joy. It is a cycle. We cannot let it end." The Sorrow Keeper seemed to waver, its starlit eyes fixed on the Heartstone. The Heartstone, a fragment of the tree's earliest light, separated in a time of hope. It remembers the beginning, before the burden grew too heavy. The whisper, sensing Elara's understanding, flew back to her, then nudged the Heartstone with its ethereal form. A surge of warmth radiated from the stone into Elara's hand, a feeling of deep empathy and courage. Elara took a deep breath. The Heartstone is a piece of the tree's own hope, a reminder of its resilience. It holds the echoes of all the joy it has given, all the life it has nurtured. If we combine its light with the whisper's song, perhaps we can remind the tree of its own strength, not just its pain. The Sorrow Keeper's form grew more agitated, the mournful drone intensifying. "It is a fool's errand. The pain is too deep. The sorrow is too vast, it will consume you, little one, just as it consumes all who dwell too long in this darkness. Shadows reached out from the vortex, like grasping tendrils, testing Elara's resolve. They whispered fears of loneliness, failure, and the fading of all beauty. Elara closed her eyes for a moment, letting the Heartstone's warmth ground her. She focused on the faint, defiant song of the whisper, on the image of the vibrant, whispering woods, on the hope in the elder's eyes. When she opened them, her gaze was clear. "I understand the sorrow," she said, her voice ringing with newfound strength. "But sorrow does not have to be the end. It can be a part of healing, a path to understanding. The tree is not alone in its suffering. We are all connected, and we are here to help it remember its light." She held the Heartstone aloft, its glow strengthening with her conviction. The whisper circled it, its song weaving intricate patterns of sound around the stone's light. Together, they began to push back against the oppressive gloom. "The Heartstone is not just light," Elara continued, stepping to the very edge of the chasm, her small figure silhouetted against the swirling violet heart. "It is memory, it is connection, it is the purest essence of the tree's spirit, and the whisper is its voice, its song of life." They were separated, but now they are reunited, and they will reunite the tree with itself. With a surge of courage born from deep within, Elara extended her arm, the Heartstone pulsing like a captured sun. The whisper, with a joyous soaring trill, darted from her shoulder and plunged directly into the swirling violet vortex, its silver light a comet streaking through the darkness. As the whisper entered the tree's heart, its song exploded outwards, no longer a faint thread, but a magnificent chorus echoing through the cavern. It was a song of spring rain, of sunlight filtering through leaves, of laughing children, of creatures playing, of all the life and joy the tree had ever fostered. The Sorrow Keeper shrieked, a sound of agony and resistance, as the song of life began to unravel its shadowy form. The tendrils of darkness recoiled, hissing. The Heartstone in Elara's hand flared, becoming almost painfully bright, radiating warmth that chased away the oppressive cold. Elara knew what she had to do. This was the true test, the moment of absolute commitment. The Heartstone and the whisper were meant to be one with the tree's heart. With all her strength, all her hope, all her love for the whispering woods, she hurled the Heartstone towards the vortex. It flew like a star, a beacon of pure golden light, straight into the swirling violet core. For a moment, there was a blinding flash, a burst of energy that shook the very foundations of the ancient tree. The cavern was filled with an incandescent glow, a pure, vibrant gold that banished every trace of shadow. The mournful drone of the Sorrow Keeper was abruptly silenced, replaced by the triumphant, resonant song of the whisper, now amplified 1,000-fold. As Elara shielded her eyes, she felt a profound shift. The oppressive weight lifted. The chilling cold receded, replaced by a gentle, nourishing warmth. When she dared to look again, the colossal cavern was transformed. The swirling violet vortex was gone. In its place, the tree's heart pulsed with a soft, radiant golden light, calm and steady. It was whole again, healed. The ancient roots that descended into the abyss were no longer slick with decay, but shimmered with a healthy, vibrant green. Bioluminescent flowers, their petals unfurling in brilliant hues of sapphire and emerald, bloomed across the cavern walls, casting a soft, ethereal glow. The air was fresh, clean and vibrant, humming with a gentle, contented energy. The Sorrow Keeper, too, was changed. It no longer stood as a looming shadow, but had dissolved into countless motes of starlight, gently swirling around the newly healed heart. It was no longer a guardian of sorrow, but a silent witness, a memory integrated into the tree's renewed spirit, reminding it of the importance of balance between joy and sorrow. Elara felt exhausted, but a profound sense of peace settled over her. She had done it. She had helped the tree remember its light. The path back was no longer dark. The roots themselves seemed to glow with a soft inner luminescence, guiding her effortlessly through the winding passages. The air grew warmer, carrying the scent of damp earth and growing things. The whisper's song, now a soft, continuous melody, filled the passages, a lullaby of restoration. When Elara finally squeezed back through the narrow crevice and emerged into the whispering woods, the change was breathtaking. The world outside the colossal tree pulsed with renewed life. The colors, once muted and fading, now exploded in a symphony of emeralds, ambers, and sapphires. The leaves on the ancient trees rustled with a joyful sound, no longer a whisper of fading life, but a vibrant, rustling chorus. Flowers, dormant for so long, unfurled in a riot of brilliant hues. Creatures, once silent and still, were everywhere. Brightly plumed birds soared through the canopy, their songs a joyous symphony. Shimmering sprites flitted among the blossoms, leaving trails of stardust. Even the air itself seemed to sparkle with renewed magic. The elder, who had been waiting patiently by the colossal tree, rose to greet her, his ancient eyes wide with wonder and relief. He didn't need to ask what had happened. The vibrant life surging through the woods, the radiant glow emanating from the very heart of the ancient tree, spoke volumes. "You have done it, little one," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You have reminded the heart of its song." Elara smiled. A tired but triumphant smile. The heartstone was gone, but its warmth, its light, now resonated within the tree and within her own heart. She felt a connection to the woods, to the ancient tree, deeper than she had ever imagined. The whisper, no longer a tiny singular sound, had become woven into the very fabric of the whispering woods. Its melody was everywhere, in the rustling leaves, the bubbling brooks, the chirping of crickets, and the gentle sigh of the wind. It was the living breath of the woods, a constant reminder of the balance restored, of the enduring power of hope and connection. Elara, the girl who had once feared the fading magic, now carried the knowledge of its resilience. She had faced the darkness not with a weapon, but with compassion and understanding, and in doing so, had helped heal an ancient wound. She knew now that true magic wasn't just about spells and enchantments, but about courage, empathy, and the unwavering belief in the light within. As the sun began to set, painting the newly vibrant sky with hues of orange and rose, Elara stood by the colossal tree, watching the whispering woods come alive with renewed magic. The air was filled with a gentle, harmonious hum, a lullaby of peace and restoration. She knew her journey was over, but a new chapter had begun for the woods, and for herself. And as she drifted off to sleep that night, surrounded by the gentle humming magic of the truly whispering woods, she knew that the light of hope, once rekindled, would never truly fade.